Just to say a few words for the, we are back live and we continue with the regular morning session powered by ECA and DigiGrow. So Antonio, the floor is yours. It's your studio.
Really glad to be here with you, okay? Today we are going to speak about bioeconomy, and in order to do that, we have with us Blaga Valentinova Popova from DigiGrow, also Bulgarian, okay? And Felix Arion from the Agro-Transylvania cluster, and Zorica Kiresieva from the Ecologic Institute, okay? So this is an experiment. We are mixing GoToMeeting with Zoom. We are mixing digital presence with a physical one. But I need to say that, as always, this is an open forum. This is better if you participate. It's better if you challenge the ideas, enrich the discussion with new proposals. And in order to do that, we have today special capabilities, okay? Because you can speak here in the room, and you can participate directly or through the video conference system with the chat, or later when we open the mic with your direct speeches. So that is the introduction, and now it's time to give the floor to Blaga Valentinova from DigiGrow. Blaga, should I give you the presentation rights?
Yeah, I'm not going to present via PowerPoint, so it's only going to be an oral presentation. I guess that's going to be easier also technically. So, good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. I think it's really a pleasure to have an exchange with European clusters. We've already talked to each other a few times. I'm joining you from Brussels. All I can say is that I really regret not being able to be there in person. But it's really great to be part of this discussion. So today I'm going to present a little bit the policies of the European Commission for the agri-food ecosystem. As Antonio mentioned, I work in DigiGrow. This is the Department Internal Market and Industry, and in a unit that is covering specifically policies for the food industry and a bit broader for the food supply chain. But today, we're no longer actually talking even about the food supply chain. We use the concept of an agri-food ecosystem, which most of you may be aware is something that already started with the EU industrial strategy. So we're looking at the European economy no longer as a sectoral approach, but with more of a systemic view or an ecosystem view. And I will explain in a while what that means. So first, we determined 14 different ecosystems, and one of them is, of course, the agri-food ecosystem. We've been talking about this already in March this year, because the ecosystem approach is also part of the way that we look at COVID response and COVID recovery. So how do we define the agri-food ecosystem? That's a little bit of a million-dollar question, because we've been working on it on a continuous basis. But we just recently did a structured mapping together with the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, and also, very importantly, representatives of the agri-food sector, the whole chain. We also actually had the pleasure to have Felix in this discussion from the Transylvania cluster. So we tried to a little bit delineate what is the scope of this agri-food ecosystem, being very clear that an ecosystem is obviously, each ecosystem is very closely intertwined with other ecosystems, and some sectors of the economy can belong to one or the other depending on the interpretation. So what did we, how did we approach this exercise of mapping the agri-food ecosystem in Europe? Well, we started first of all taking a step back. We looked at the demand side, not only from the consumer, but the demand also from the producer side. So we started already from the needs of the primary producers. So part of the ecosystem then would be the suppliers of input and services for what we call primary producers. These would be producers of seeds, pesticides, fertilizers, packaging. Of course, a primary part of the system are the primary producers themselves, which are, first of all, the farmers, but not only. We also have fishermen and forestry in there. Then we followed up at looking at all the storage, transport, logistics, and wholesale for primary production. And moving to the next step, which is the food processing step. Food processing, or we also call it food industry. The food industry is comprised of big companies, but the predominant chunk are actually small and medium-sized enterprises. Around 99% of food processors are actually small. A lot of them are micro and family companies. That's also very important from a policy approach. Then we have, of course, the suppliers of inputs for these operators, for things such as machinery, packaging, and so on. So the packaging sector, which is per se a separate sector when it comes to food packaging is also part of this agri-food ecosystem. Then we have transport and logistic, wholesale, and all the way to the interface with the consumer, which are first and foremost the retailers. And we look, of course, not only at traditional retail, which are the big supermarket chains and a lot of many small retailers, including food markets and so on, but also new ways of distribution, such as online channels for food, e-commerce, and food delivery. And we also have there, of course, the whole hospitality and food service sector. And we have finally arrived almost to the end, which is us, the consumers. So we follow the journey of a food product, what we call from farm to fork. But as I said, we have an even more extensive approach. We look at also what is happening at the, shall I call it, end of life or of the product, or at disposal. So unfortunately, we still know that about 20% of food in Europe is wasted and lost. So we have food waste, but we also have materials coming from the agri-food ecosystem that feed back into the ecosystem in kind of a circularity mode, or they feed into other ecosystems. For example, we have biomass and waste to energy, or certain byproducts of the food industry go back into the system as animal food. So it's all a big cosmos in a way, in which we have also horizontal actors such as research, academia, and public authorities as well that set up the parameters. And here I include also business support, of course, the clusters and the whole natural environment. So you can see how broad is the definition of the agri-food ecosystem. But once again, we think this system approach is more viable in defining policies, because if you limit yourself and focus only on one sector, you may miss all these links. So this is a little bit how we define the agri-food ecosystem. And I hope next time to be able to present to you the graphical presentation, because we are still working on it, so you have more of a visual view of what I'm talking about. So as a second step, you already understand that this ecosystem is very closely linked to others. And we looked at what these other ecosystems are. And of course, one that immediately popped by is the hospitality and tourism ecosystem. And in a way, I mentioned that food service is part of our ecosystem, but it's of course also part of the tourism and hospitality ecosystem. And this link, perhaps now with the COVID crisis, we have seen how strong it is, because one of the biggest impacts on food demand over the recent months has been actually the closure and the limited reopening of the HoReCa sector, and let's say the impact that we have had on the tourism sector in Europe. We know that approximately between 20 and 30% of the turnover of food industry, for example, is destined to HoReCa. A lot of wholesalers are also dependent on the HoReCa clients. So these links have to be very carefully analyzed so we can have a comprehensive response, a kind of build into each other's strengths, but also look to the weaknesses. There are many other ecosystems to which agri-food is connected, but I will just mention two more, which are, I think, particularly close. We have a retail ecosystem, which you understand is also kind of a very horizontal ecosystem, because a lot of other systems such as the chemicals or textiles, they also have retail as part of their scope. But retail is, of course, food retail is part of our ecosystem, but it's also part of their separate ecosystem. What we've seen with the COVID situation, that in fact the impact, and that's kind of self-explanatory, on food and non-food retail has been very different. This is why we are exploring that a little bit separately, but some of the major trends in retail are common for food and non-food. And one of these is, for example, the phasing out of brick and mortar, new systems of sales such as e-commerce, and so on. And another one that I will mention is the digital ecosystem. And that's also kind of a horizontal ecosystem present almost everywhere nowadays, which we know brings about a lot of opportunities, but sometimes also challenges. So I think I've talked enough about the, let's say, description of this ecosystem, the link to the other ecosystems. So where do we go from there? So we started, as you have done also as agri-food clusters, analyzing the challenges for the ecosystem. And of course, in March, April, May, we were looking at very specific shocks that were linked to the lockdowns, the most acute phases of the crisis. And I will not get too much into this because I'm sure that we've already discussed that, the border closures, the disruptions in the single market, lack of inputs for certain industries, problems with free movement of workers. But what is the conclusion? Well, for us, one big conclusion has been obviously the importance of the single market and the need to use the European single market as a motor for recovery. How to strengthen it, how to make it more resilient, and be prepared for future shocks. It can be a health crisis, but it can be another type of crisis. The food system, you know, can be quite volatile. So how can we prepare our single market for future situations? So that's one important part of our work nowadays, and we have a different challenge. We have now a very regular and even more regular, I would say, and structured exchanges with the authorities of the different European member states to make sure that responses are coordinated, that where there is need, we can intervene in a more targeted way. But of course, now a little bit, once we have had I would say a bit partial reopening of the EU economy, we are now looking also, of course, at the recovery challenges. So these are a little bit, I would say, the aftermath of those first very acute months. And here for the agri-food, again, I would say the first issue that we have been looking at is how the HoReCa sector, so hospitality, restaurants, catering, how are they going to recover? Because that would mean also recovery of the demand of agri-food products. Now, unfortunately, the HoReCa sector is meant to recover slower than other sectors for a series of reasons. It has been estimated that a recovery to pre-crisis levels can take between 18 and 24 months. But this is, again, just an estimate. It's just a forecast. It can take longer. Some operators have not reopened after the lockdowns. Others are struggling with limited capacity. And let's see now in the winter months how this is going to evolve. So it's going to be up to all of us, the sector, the operators, but also the authorities, the clusters, the local authorities, to come together and see what would be the best solutions for this recovery, and can we have some type of common projects of relaunching the HoReCa sector together with the agri-food. Because something that was noted by the colleagues working in the tourism sector is that one area of tourism that actually grew during the crisis was local tourism close to urban areas, which is of course linked to local gastronomy. So maybe we can see new opportunities for boosting that in a post-crisis or recovery context. Another big challenge in the recovery, well, it's not new to the recovery, but we are always insisting that the recovery has to be a green recovery. And there is a need to find a balance between meeting the immediate needs, but always keeping in mind the mid to long-term goals of sustainability. Clearly easier said than done when a small company has liquidity issues and cannot make ends meet. But again, challenge into an opportunity and find it as a way to kind of rebirth after the crisis and find new ways of working. And perhaps a final note, because I am conscious of time, and it's again on how to kind of channeling the recovery challenges into opportunities. I mentioned digital and innovation. So starting with digitalization, what we have seen is that with COVID, the trends that had already started have accelerated in all sectors as in food. One of these trends is food e-commerce that we have seen grow. That is understandable. And now the question is, how do we channel this into an opportunity for all operators in the agri-food ecosystem? We need the necessary infrastructure, we need the investment. We saw that the retailers who already had a system in place got an incredible demand for delivering food to our homes. Some of them were not prepared. Those who were could capture the opportunity. Others who didn't have such system in place obviously experienced a drop in demand. So this has to be seen also holistically as an opportunity, but also looking at the spillovers. And one of those spillovers is, of course, the sustainability impact and how do we deal with the environmental footprint, for example, of transport and the last mile. We've been ordering food delivered by bicycle, but we know that that's obviously not the only option. There are different circumstances, remote areas, and so on. So this has to be carefully looked into. Innovation, a huge opportunity for many aspects. We know that. But with COVID, we have new consumer trends, and some of these consumer trends can be really sustained by innovation. So people seem to be demanding more healthy food to boost their immune systems during COVID. So innovative food products can play a role together, of course, with fresh produce. There has been an increase in demand of local products. So there again, logistics innovation can play a role. I think I'm going to stop here, and then we can further touch upon some of these issues in the debate so we can move on to the following speaker. Thank you so much, Antonio, and everybody.
You are very welcome, Blaga. It has been an excellent explanation of where we are. Thank you for joining us. I know that, I don't know if you will be able to keep us with us during all the session. Are you going to stay or?
So perhaps I will have to leave between 10:30, quarter to 11. So I will stay a little bit more, yeah.
Okay, yes, because if not, I will give the floor now for questions. But if you can stay, we can hear the rest of the participants and later. Yeah, I think so. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. So now it's time to welcome Felix Arion from the Agro-Transylvania cluster. And Felix is here with us. So I will try, let me just move the presentation. Sorry, because I need to change everything now. It's here, the presentation. Now we can see it. Perfect. And the floor is yours, Felix. Welcome. Very glad to see you here physically. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Well, for the ones who are online, I'm not Antonio, even if in your screen, probably Antonio is the one who is speaking. Now it's Felix Arion. I'm from Romania, for Agro-Transylvania cluster. I'm really happy to be here for many reasons, because it's a very hybrid area. I'm online with 20, 25 people, I guess, even more in this room. And on the same time, I'm trying to speak with people which I don't see it. So that's in fact the idea that we want to discuss today. We heard a lot of time the terminology recover, and we just go backward. Well, I don't like that. From my point of view, we do not make a step back, but sideways. So we have to create a new path. The path that we are used to do it is not working anymore because of different reasons. Like in this room, you have a lot of empty spaces. I'm very sure that in regular cases, there will be full of people inside of the room. So we create, and we have to adapt new ideas. Well, to adapt, we have to look back to the past to see what we've done, what we can learn from what we've done, what was good, what was not good, and what we can do it to be more adapted to the new situation and what we forecast there will be into the future. Well, we were asked to talk about the clusters. We were asked to talk about what the clusters are doing in how they have an experience in the European Recovery Plan, what kind of instruments they are working, what actions inside of the instruments were used during the last period of time, and of course, different kind of suggestions to increase that collaboration. So this is what I intended to do from that point of view. I will be very short with this presentation, because with this slide, because I suppose you can see it a lot of time. It is in working. I had the pleasure to be working for the ecosystem for agri-food. And I can tell you it was created based on the value chain of agri-food from farm to fork. So basically it's a value chain, all the steps that product goes from the field until it's in your table. Well, but it's not only that, it's not a value chain, it's much more complex. And when you will have a graphic of this ecosystem, you will see that it's much more complicated. And this is why actually European Union tried to work and try to help each of us as a clusters or as a business facilitators, in fact, to move on. Well, Agro-Transylvania cluster, as you can see, we tried to create at the moment, 2013, so it's almost 7 years ago, we tried to create an ecosystem, actually. A small ecosystem in the northwest part of Romania, trying to integrate in the value chain of agri-food different kind of actors which regularly are not really talking with agri-food, and trying to create that very nice ecosystem, which is looking like this, from inputs actually to the final consumer. And more or less, the ecosystem, agri-food ecosystem looks quite the same, but much more complicated because there were different players for all over the Europe who let their fingerprint on the ideas, which is nice. But more or less, this is ecosystem, the Agro-Transilvania cluster created in Cluj, which is one of the 40 counties in Cluj at the moment, and that created and extended in time in the entire northwest of Romania, and moving on to the national level and even more. And I will have the possibility to show you how we are doing. Well, talking about ecosystem, we understand that one cluster is not enough. So it was created during this year under the umbrella of Clustero, the Associations of Romanian Cluster, a national network of clusters in agri-food, which are reunited mostly the most important clusters in food in Romania, almost one in each of the region. We decided to have a common voice. It was created based on the, as an answer to the problem of COVID. So we've seen that we have to negotiate with different authorities, not only on the local regional area, but with the national ones. So having a bigger voice is much more important. So we succeeded in doing this one. So ecosystem is moving on. Even more, beside the name of the cluster, we created another ecosystem which is working for many years in the northwest of Romania. And they are the clusters, 3 of them are gold clusters in these pictures. And what I wanted to say, because it's really important from my point of view, it's not only the name of the cluster, it's not only their internal ecosystem, but it's very important the persons which are beside this. Those guys that you see it here into the pictures are the ones who make the things working there, are the ones who are negotiating the local and regional governments. We are negotiating and we are having a constant dialogue actually with different kind of authorities for creating, for instance, smart specialization in the area, to have a bigger voice, because we are representing a very large sector and a very large number of economy and the players inside of the economies. But okay, those are more or less the fundamentals that European Recovery Plan and want to repair and prepare the next generation. Well, I will come back to this word next generation, which in my opinion could be quite dangerous. Well, even if it doesn't look like this at the moment. So as you can see, the first 2, it's green transition and digital transition, probably the most important ones. And Agro-Transilvania cluster had quite an interesting experience and work and actions in those 2 areas, but well, into the same time to the rest of them. I will just give you a couple of examples because that was we were asked to do it. What we actually succeeded during the time, during these 7 years that we exist in on the market as a cluster. Well, of course, about green transition, we were interested in having a much more circular economy. We know the West is one of the biggest problems that it's happening at the moment in Europe, and not only in Europe, especially on food. So we are part of this Horizon 2020 project, which are trying to take a look not only as a product of food, agricultural product, not only a food, but into the same time as a different use of agricultural products. For instance, you know about biodiesel, but it's much more interesting. It's about textile. Into the same time, it's about buildings or automotive, because some of the agricultural products can be used as isolations, for instance, and that could be more green than plastic one they are using at the moment. So we are looking to find that kind of a solution. This is an European project, of course, around 2 million euros, and is moving at the moment, and is almost about to be ending. Of course, we were created to support our farmers. So we have different projects in that kind of area. One of these, it's about, for instance, to create short value chain and to certify local products. So the consumer can understand what a product which is done in one region is different than the other one, and trying to find a shorter path from the farm to your tables. And this is done, a project that it's working, and we are very happy that it's done. Well, talking also about green transition, we have some interesting results on the socio-economical impacts. We have a project, a national project, around 4 million euros, for creating different kind of labs to certify the quality of the products. What we are interested to do is not only to say, yeah, the products are very nice into the region, but they are specific because they are inside of the region. We are creating at the moment inside of this project different kind of voluntary certification. We already sent to European Commission one of them. We work for another 3 different certifications, like made in Transylvania, for instance, because we want to support local farmers to be known as being local farmers and not only a name inside of big supermarkets. Well, this is the former Commissioner for Agriculture who visited us a couple of years ago. Well, of course, digital transition is very interesting. We are working for this one. We are running a COSME project where we are trying, together with another 5 partners from Europe, to put together small farmers with ICT's industry. And we just realized that's an absolutely impossible gap. Because sometimes the language seems to be extremely different between what the farmers want and what the ICT are doing. So we are trying to mentoring the ICT companies to understand what the farmer needs to work for the farmers, and not only looking for their very cold computer work. Of course, this is doing into the same time we prepared and we applied for European Digital Innovation Hub in the northwest of Romania under the umbrella of the Northern Cluster Consortium. The project is called Smart Transylvania, because we want into the same time to have a very close connection to the cluster in IT in the region. So clusters in different other sectors and cluster in IT to be on the same table all the time, so they create projects and products designed specially for what we needed. Well, of course, if you're talking about knowledge and competencies, this is a lot of projects that we are working on. Into the same time, I'm working for a university, so of course the link with education, it's very strong from my point of view. And this is only 3 of the projects. One is a national project, Learn to Do Entrepreneurship, where we just finance 49 startups to be more competitive, to mentor them, and to support during the first 2 years of their life. And we are quite happy to saying that instead, even during this period of time of pandemic, we succeed, those companies exist, and even if they are small, they are working and they have very good chances to move on. Well, we are part of an Erasmus Mundus, an international master, which are preparing students on the field of localized products. And Agro-Transylvania cluster is the ones who offer them training, preparation on the farms and the companies inside of this. And something interesting, I'm sorry I don't see Cipri Morcan here, but he created together with us, but he is the core of this project. This is so-called Learn Consulting, Do Consulting. Actually, a company inside of our cluster are selecting 10 people, 10 students generally, and they are training voluntarily those guys to be able to offer consulting services after all. And this is working very nice, and we have very good graduates of this program. Well, of course, resilience. This is a very nice word, resilience. Now, we just realized that sustainability is not enough. We create a lot of sustainable ecosystem, but the crisis comes and the economic pillar collapsed, and then the social pillar collapsed, and of course, in just environmental pillar, sustainability did not succeed to survive. So we need to be resilient. So if something else is happening, we can make to be able to sustain that shocks and to move on. So we have a project, and Daniel Košnitsa, it was one of the experts inside of this project. It's about alternative policies. We tried to create alternative policies to go to the guys in the government in Romania saying, okay, there are other ways of thinking, not only your thing. So let's try to support our producers. So in our case, what we wanted to do is to give a bigger chance to certified product, to local products on the public auctions. At the moment, the public auctions, the one designated, for instance, for kids and for hospitals, the small is the price, you just won the auction and you provide the food products. We are not interested in that one because we are interested to have a local community, to have products coming from the community to the local consumers. We are interested to put in front of the kids, to our kids, to be educated, to know what is a bioproduct, for instance, what is geographical indication products, because they will be the next generation which will, in fact, choose the products, the food, and we want to educate them since they are kids, and that's one. And secondly, we have to keep in mind that providing quality products, we will be able, into the same time, to avoid different kind of disease. So if there is not too much sugar, if it's not too much, I don't know, fat into the products, especially designated for kids, we will be able to use different other time and resources into the future, not for health. Well, of course, strong value chains for us is very interesting to have very strong value chains and to extend our value chains. Well, that's another former European commissioner which promoted this project. It was a project, COSME, which was ending at the beginning of this year, a COSME project where we tried to go international. Well, to open third market for European product. It was created that food in eco network, which is working, and now we have partners from Canada, from China, from Middle East. We are trying to create to be more sustainable because we want to keep in mind that the first one which it was shaking when the pandemic is starting, it was the value chains, traditional value chain, they start to shaking, and we as a consumer were the ones who lost more or less. So of course it's the time to think about some of the conclusions. So in our opinion, and we will emphasize that, and we want to say that to European Union, it's extremely important to educate the consumer. To avoid what was already happening, it's interesting the consumer to know how to choose products, even if the price is possibly a bit higher at the moment. They will have advantage in a long time because sustainable value chain, sustainable farm to fork networks could be created, and they will support into the same time the ecosystem. Well, we realized, and this is part of our experience, of course, we want digitalize in agriculture and food industry. Well, food industry, it's a big stronger, so they can emphasize, they can bring together that kind of technology, new technology, especially the digital one, artificial intelligence, for instance, or different kind of robots. But for farms, it's not so easy, especially for small farms. They don't have enough capabilities, and we are talking about financial, we are talking about education, we are talking about understanding on their neighbors actually. If you are using drones in your area, You can have problem with the neighbors who saying you are spying my area instead of working together. So this is a lot of work we have to do in this, and to support agri-food producer to go on the digital area. And it will not work by themselves. It's not a natural process. We have to interfere here, educating and supporting, including financially. Well, into the same time, we want to emphasize that advantage of certification from many points of view, especially because certified products are more resilient. They resist better on the market. Consumer will be more interesting during any kind of shock. As you can see, during the pandemic, the price was not so important. I mean, we were more interested to have healthy product and products which can be certified they're healthy and they have a higher standard of quality. Well, that's, sorry, this is certification. Let's do it, let's use it. European Union already have a policy of quality for food products, and it's working. It's TGA, PDO, PGI, TSG, Bio, Mountain, Insular products, which it's a certification and can be added to different kind of national and voluntary certification. That's a very big and very rich solution that can be quite easy put into the market and can survive much better than a regular product. Well, of course, we need different kind of facilities for associations. We need that, because we've seen if we are not working together, any kind of shock will give us big problems. Well, sometimes associations and cooperation is very nice for, let's say, very educated people, which I believe in this room, and people who are watching this webinar into the same time, because we understand that. But if you are going to farmers, if you are going to associations into the rural area, this is not so easy to understand. So we have to support them to work together, so in any case of shock, they will work better. Well, and my final question is, it's very nice we are talking about next generation. What about the actual generation? We drop them, we sacrifice them. I guess that most of us are quite fed up of being the sacrificed generation all the time. This recovery plan, we are talking about trillions of euros, 1.5 trillion of euros. So this is needed for Europe to recover. And half of that could be reached by this European recovery plan. It will be paid back, some of them, but not in this period of time. Will be starting in 2028 until 2058. So the next generation will pay for what we are doing now. So the idea is, well, let's make a recovery plan, but not only for the next generation. Let's do it for all the generations, and let's try to be try to work together as an European ecosystem where every small pieces can work together and can create a very strong ecosystem. So that was all from me. Thank you.
You are very welcome, Felix. I really like the question that you have put over the table, and I think that Blaga needs to leave soon. I think this is the moment to open the mic for you, Blaga. Do you have any comments of that proposals, questions?
Questions from the audience, or you would like me to perhaps comment on Felix's presentation?
Yeah, I will say first to Felix, and we can, after that, open the mic for the audience if you want, okay?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Felix. I think this type of analysis is something that we definitely need right now. And the reason is that, of course, we'd like to get this recovery package right. As the next steps, you know that the European member states are the ones that have to their recovery plans. But of course, at the European level, we'd like as much as possible to stir the process and to make sure that the areas that are touched upon are really the areas where this package can have the biggest impact. So if I can be more blunt, that the money is well spent, and in our case, that it goes to the right places in the agri-food ecosystem. So I very much welcome the ideas that were given by the Transylvania cluster and agri-food clusters in general. And I think it's also, of course, advisable to speak to your local authorities, to spread the word so that these ideas can actually become a reality. And not thinking about recovery, but thinking a little bit more as a rebirth, that's also, I would say, a nice way to put it. Reinventing yourself after the crisis is very much in line with keeping the green transition and capturing those new opportunities. So thank you very much for this, Felix. So if you can send us the presentation as well, and we will be in touch.
For sure. Thank you, Plaga. And now the mic is open for questions from the rest of the attendants, physically here or virtually in the cyberspace. Who is the first? Somebody?
Antonio?
Yes?
Antonio, Lucia Sail speaking
Hi,
here.
Lucia.
Good morning. Hello, Antonio. I have a question for Felix, which is really interesting for me. You touched the issue of agri-food and circular economy, so also in relation with the green transition. Can you maybe give us a bit more examples or insight into how clusters, how your cluster can support these type of actions, and if you undertook already any initiatives in developing circular economy approaches in the agri-food sector? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lucia. Of course, that's an interesting subject, and of course we have some of the results on this one. What we are actually doing in Agro-Transylvania cluster is trying to make different kind of actors to work together. So sometimes the garbage of one actor could be quite interesting for other ones to use it in different other areas. I will offer you one example. It was about the wool, which was in Romania actually not used at all because the price is too low and people were not interested in use that wool that comes from sheep. But into the same time, we developed a collaboration with a company which are creating isolation for houses, and especially houses from wood. So they create that kind of living houses and with almost zero waste, using into the same time the wool, which was a wasted resources for farmers, and this is integrated into the buildings facilities. This is one of the examples. Onto the same time, we use different kind of waste from animals, from farmers, to be used in big platforms in farms, in central farm, which are using after that to be to create manure, which is used inside of the agricultural companies. So we are trying to reduce also any kind we are possible, the different kind of waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix, as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, so any other question, comment? Please contribute with your ideas. Yes, we have one here in the audience.
Hello, my name is Cristiana Casangiva. I have a question to Felix as well. Here at the Technical University in Varna, Here at the Technical University in Varna, we are working a lot towards precision agriculture, and we would be very interested to collaborate with you on this matter. Can you tell us, do you have any projects, because we are really impressed about your projects in Erasmus Mundus and other programs. Do you work on such projects about precision agriculture, and how do you do it with the business and the collaboration between businesses and universities on this topic?
Yes, we are working in different projects for that kind of smart agriculture. Well, the Truck Cosme project that I mentioned before, it was one that is opening the ways. Inside of this project, for instance, we are mentoring one company. It's called Centric IT. It's a very small company. And we work with them to create, and we applied for an European project actually together with this one and a technical university in Romania. They create small robots for farms, which it's using their artificial intelligence, and it's all the time rethinking what he has to do it, and is learning from the experience. Into the same time, together with the University of Agricultural Sciences and Veterinary Medicine from Cluj, where I'm also working, we created a project for a network of different sensors used for agriculture. So those sensors are on the field and they give different kind of information about the farmer, saying, oh, by the way, you have to irrigate that area. Oh, by the way, there is a pest problem on this area. Also, into the same time, we are working now to create a collaboration with a company in Romania, which are providing solution with drones. And we are starting with the vineyard. So those things are just going around and taking very nice pictures and saying when the high quality grapes has to be picked up by the hand, so the quality of the wine to be a premium one. So yes, we have different kind of projects, and of course we are all the time looking for new collaborations. So when we will finish that, we can have a talk. Thank you.
Sorry, it's a kind of continuously switching. So thank you. I know that Blaga needs to leave us. One last question for Blaga. We are at your disposal, as you know, okay? So what will be the next steps in our possible collaboration? How do you think that we could best help you in achieving your goals?
So first of all, thanks for all the input that you have already provided. I think we absolutely have to continue exchanging information. I think what you're doing is very useful for us to get information on the ground instead of, doing macro policies on a broad level remotely somewhere in Brussels. So keep informing us about the issues and the solutions that have worked. Some examples were given by Felix, but I'm sure that there are many more examples out there. And as I mentioned, of course, be proactive as well with your national authorities who are currently setting up their recovery plans. And they're really local initiatives, regional initiatives, local governments will be the ones that are going to implement and are going to do the spending with the concrete project. So that would be my message, but also, of course, keep in touch with us so we can continue together setting the priorities and get new ideas so we can do our orientation in more of a guidelines approach, if I can say so. I think we're very much on the same line from what I heard today, but also in previous meetings in terms of looking at green, looking at innovation, looking at digital, of course, being sensitive also to the economic sustainability for small actors, for vulnerable farmers. What Felix mentioned about the need for more collaboration, this is also in line with our thinking. You're probably familiar with the latest Farm to Fork strategy for sustainable food chains. The strategy has a resilience aspect as well. We have started, we're starting actually work now on setting up a contingency plan for the agri-food system, indeed to be more prepared for future shocks. Going back to the collaboration as part of the Farm to Fork, the Commission will try to clarify competition rules for collective initiatives where those initiatives have a clear sustainability impact. So let's say if it is for a good cause, if it will have a positive impact, this is something that we can support. We also hear the demand of consumers for local production. They trust local producers. They want to support local farmers, but if we, of course, don't want to this to turn into some type of fragmentation of the single market, so we're looking at a balanced approach there, because indeed food chains are integrated, and we are also, as Europe, a big exporter outside to third countries of food. So we have to keep all these ideas in mind. But yeah, keep up the good work. I will try to stay for another maybe 5 minutes to hear the next presentation. But I already say thank you, and have a fantastic conference. If I can join via Zoom later on at a certain point, we will see. Thanks for the invitation.
You are very welcome, Praga. I'm sure that I am speaking both for the organization and myself. Okay, thank you very much. And we will now pass to the next speaker, that is Zorita Kiresieva from the Ecologic Institute. Zorita, are you there?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can see you perfectly. Should I give you the presentation right?
Yeah. Maybe in the meantime, a few words about me and my background. So I'm really sad that I'm joining this conference now from my office in Berlin, and I'm not physically in Sveti Constantina Telena, as I'm Bulgarian, and yeah, I've never been there before. I'm sure that this is a terrific place, but next time. Can you see my screen now?
Just one moment. I need to move the screen here. Yes, we can see.
So give me a second. Okay. So I am a researcher at the Ecological Institute Berlin, and we are a non-for-profit private environmental institute for environmental policy, and cover basically all environmentally related topics, and the bioeconomy is one of them. So I have been working on the topic of the bioeconomy for more than 5 years, mainly in the field of strategic development, stakeholder engagement, trade-offs between the bioeconomy and the Agenda 2030, the linkages, and also, yeah, we're trying to facilitate an open discourse about the chances, but also about the risks of the bioeconomy. And I'm here today to present our BIORURAL project, which is very much related to today's conference topic. So the bioeconomy is a driver for more greener and resilient society and economy. And for those of you who were from the beginning, during the opening session, you already heard a few words about the project, but now I'll give a more detailed overview about what we're doing, and will relate our work to the role of clusters at the end of my presentation. So, BIORURAL, what we want to do. We want to explore the potential of local and regional bioeconomy strategies, and to support regional stakeholders in the participatory development of bioeconomy strategies and roadmaps, as well as business models. So this is a Horizon 2020 funded project, and we've started about 1.5 years ago. So our work is focused on those regions across Europe. So We have the Vidzeme and Kurzeme regions in Latvia, where we are focusing on the use of byproducts from the forest sector. We have the Szczecin and Vistula lagoons in Poland, where we are focusing on sustainable small-scale fisheries, and in particular on the sustainable use of low-value fish species such as the roach. In Romania, we are working in the Covasna County, also working very close with the clusters, and the aim is to implement the circular economy approach in the country's industry by covering a variety of sectors. In Stara Zagora and Bulgaria, we are focusing on the use of residues from the agricultural sector. And in Strumica and North Macedonia, we are also trying to utilize residues from the agricultural sector. So this is in a nutshell about our regions. And all these regions have regional stakeholders or regional facilitators who are in charge with the regions. A few words about our principles. So the development of bioeconomy strategies and roadmaps and business models is based on 3 principles. The first is the co-creation. So we are facilitating the active involvement of a broad spectrum of stakeholders and citizens. And while we're doing this, we believe that by providing such spaces for co-creation, we can also contribute to broader societal goals that could be also integrated in the strategies, and we could stimulate demand for more sustainable and innovative products and services. And this is crucial for the uptake of the bioeconomy. We need the public acceptance. The second principle is the principle of openness and inclusiveness. So we want to ensure that all relevant stakeholder groups will have the opportunity to engage, and the process is open to everyone, not only to the usual suspects from business, academia and policy, but also to civil society, to the environmental NGOs, and to citizens. And last but not least is the principle of sustainability. We want to design the bioeconomy that promotes the sustainable use of agricultural, forest, and marine ecosystems. So you can see our principles here reflected on the graph on the right side. The different stakeholder groups are at the heart of our project, and they all work together and act by considering the sustainable use of the ecosystems at regional levels. So we call this an open innovation platform. Okay, this was on the more conceptual side. Now I'm going to say a few words about the implementation process, how it works in the reality. So the first step of our project was the analytical work. So we had a look at the biomass potential in the regions, at the available technologies, at the relevant stakeholders, and at the policy frameworks. So in parallel to this work, we also kick-started the stakeholder engagement process. So we established a stakeholder working group in all regions, and these stakeholders are regularly meeting and discussing the vision of bioeconomy for their regions. We have a capacity building workshop, knowledge exchange, also interregional exchange. And apart from that, we have a number of engagement activities for the involvement of the citizens. For example, we already actually organized 2 pop-up stores in Latvia and in Poland, where we showed tangible bio-based products and also engaged with the citizens. So the idea is to get their feedback not only on the particular products, but also on the concept of the bioeconomy, and also to integrate this feedback in the strategy development. For the other 3 regions, the pop-up stores will be organized, maybe the coming year. And what we want to achieve, so our final goal is not only to have 5 bioeconomy strategies and roadmaps and to develop business models suitable for the regions, but also to generate knowledge about the strategy development process, what works, what did not work very well, and want to share these lessons learned and the policy guidance beyond our regions. And here is the website. You can visit it and see all our analytical work. Yeah, and now about the role of clusters. This was stressed today several times that clusters key stakeholders and have a very important role to play for the uptake of the bioeconomy. They can steer the process of the strategy development, and they could also help to overcome collaboration challenges between feedstock owners and bio-based industries, which is really challenging. It was also mentioned by the presenters before. So far in Europe, there are a few clusters that are framing their activities under the frame of the bioeconomy. Here are a few examples, like the bioeconomy cluster in central Germany, the bioeconomy cluster in Slovakia. We have the Spanish bio-based cluster, the cluster Luciano, the BIOECONOMY, and the bio-based delta in the Netherlands. But Ula mentioned during her presentation in the morning an impressive numbers of clusters. Their activities are very close or very related to the bioeconomy, as the bioeconomy is also a very, very broad sector. So all other clusters in the field of agriculture, chemistry, furniture, forest, pharmaceuticals can play a crucial role here. And I'm very glad that we established this collaboration with the clusters in Romania. And also mentioned previous, the collaboration of the clusters with public authorities is very important. And I have two good practices on this. So one is the bioeconomy cluster in central Germany. The cluster was very actively involved in the development of the smart specialization strategy of the federal state Saxony-Anhalt. And they also developed one of the main pillars of the strategy, namely the bioeconomy, and now are involved in the implementation of the measures outlined in this strategy. And the second example is the bio-based delta in the Netherlands. And actually, this is an interesting example because it's driven, the cluster is driven by the regional authorities, and they are involving stakeholders from academia and industry with the aim to foster bioeconomy development in the regions. And I'm sure that there are many other good examples we'll be happy to hear, because we have also so many clusters representatives here on this. Yeah, and my last point, want to link the bioeconomy to the European Green Deal and the green recovery. A sustainable bioeconomy, an inclusive bioeconomy, and a bioeconomy that really involved all stakeholders could contribute to a number of objectives that are already outlined in the European Green Deal. For example, achieving climate neutral and circular economy, healthy and environmental friendly food system, fostering innovation, and could of course contribute to a greener recovery, especially at regional level. And right now we are having at European level a very high political willingness to turn this crisis into an opportunity towards more greener and resilient society and economy. And region can take advantage of this. And there are also some positive effects of the COVID-19 crisis. For example, there is an increased demand of recreational opportunities provided by rural ecosystems. There is an increased demand for locally produced products, and there is an increased interest for local market. And what the crisis also has shown is that we need shorter value chains, and we need to look at the regional and the local resources. And this could be the starting point for many regions. Also, the national and the regional recovery plans could be appropriate instrument to support the uptake of the bioeconomy. Also mentioned several times before that the member states are currently working on their national recovery plans, and here's where regional authorities and clusters can also get in touch and provide input for those plans. And apart from that, right now, the member states are also working on their strategic plans for the common agricultural policy, and they are supposed to develop measures to promote the bioeconomy, which means that the new CAP could also provide opportunities for the uptake of the bioeconomy at regional level. So let me end my presentation, and I'm looking forward to your questions. And just one thing I forgot to mention, later on at 1:30 Eastern European time, no, 2:30 Eastern European time, we will have our workshop where we are, if you can join, we'll be glad we can share some lessons learned and discuss with you the strategy development in more details. Daniel, please correct me if the time is wrong, but I think that it was 1:30 Central European time.
2:30.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very
2:30
much.
Eastern
Thanks
time.
for having me here.
So 1:30 Central European time. So thank
Okay,
you.
I was
Thank
right.
you, Saritza. Perfect. So thank you. And now it's time to open the floor for all the questions from the audience. I have received one that is coming, I think, through Zoom. Yeah, okay. So it's from Cristina Lincaru. And the question is, please, could you give some insight regarding the statistical indicators system used for this strategy? I think that this question probably is from Blaga, and which she left. She left, yeah. But if somebody has information about that, it will be very welcome.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? If we have statistical information about
regarding the statistical indicators system used for this strategy.
Well, we are still in the process of developing the strategy, so at the very beginning of the strategy, but I guess that we are all going to use the statistical information available for the member states that are also available from the National Statistic Institutes on the bioeconomy.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, Daniel, could you can hear if you want. But it will be better if you can hear, yes, because if not, those that are attending from the conference will not hear you.
So because you have seen the diversity of the regions which are taken into consideration in this project. I mean, one of the main aims of this project is to build strategies taking into consideration all the different aspects in which region, in Letland, in Poland, in Romania, North Macedonia, in Bulgaria, but still to come to a certain level of similarity as to compare. And one of the and I thank Mrs. Lincaru for this question, because one of the aims of the workshop to which we invite you to take part at the 2:30 Eastern European, 1:30 Central European, 12:30 United Kingdom. So it is that to try to figure out together what are the indicators we should measure in this bioeconomy. And I think this question is also relevant at a higher level. Yeah, what should we measure? We're talking about agro-food value chains. We talk about bioeconomy, which I think covers more than one of the 14 industrial ecosystems. So when we speak about bioeconomy, it's agri-food, but it's also tourism, it's also health, it's also low carbon industry, it's also energy. So bioeconomy is, I think, the topic that covers very many construction, very many of these 14 industrial ecosystem. And it is very important that how we measure this and how we measure the impact if we develop strategies in this field. And this is also one of the aspects we would like to discuss with you at 14:30. But maybe Felix could say something also about it. So what do you think we should measure? I mean, how complex is this measurement? Because this, yeah.
Well, the complexity of agri-food system, as we will discuss, it's almost impossible to estimate at the moment. So there are a lot of different kind of indicators that they were discussed with the European Commission to be taken into consideration when we are talking about this. It's not only about the number of jobs, for instance, not only about the output in volume or in not only in quantity, but in the value into the same time. But they are much more complicated issues, like, for instance, the cost of waste and the cost of assuring the qualities, which are indirect indicators that has to be put into discussion. For instance, the quality was a very long discussion. If the quality is part of the ecosystem or it's a special elements in the ecosystem of agri-food, or it's something which is horizontally and should exist, because somebody just emphasized there, for instance, if it's not to reach the minimum quality, the products will not entering into the agri-food system. And well, which quality? Countries have different qualities. Certified products have a higher quality, so the number of discussion is it's very complicated. But anyway, we are talking that kind of indicator that can be compared between different or among different ecosystem, which is jobs, which is output, which is importance into the economy, in the regional, national, and European quality. For instance, percentage of GDP. It's interesting from that point of view. But also, into the same time, as I told you, it should take into consideration those kinds of indicators, which are indirect indicators like externalities, for instance, or effects on other ecosystems. They were emphasized, and that could be interesting for all of us. It was emphasized that that kind of measures and actions that will support not only one ecosystem, but more ecosystem into the same time, and link more those ecosystems, will be definitely sustained priority by European Commission. Thank you. We still have 3 minutes. Fine.
Thank you, Felix. Sorry, because I know that you didn't hear Daniel. Sorry, it's something that we need to take care for the next situation, okay? But we are learning. This is part of our spirit, okay? So, any other question from those that are attending here or remotely? Marek, are you there? I would very much like to hear your views on what clusters can do in this ecosystem. Hello, can you speak now?
Yes.
We are hearing you.
Just about the ecosystem of agri-food, and particularly. Do you have a slide maybe? Or
no, I don't have the slide from.
Okay, so just we have the ecosystem, which is one of the biggest in Europe. Here we have plenty. I cannot give the presentation of the slide, but I just wanted to say that the agri-food ecosystem has related sectors in the EU that we have. It's about 250 clusters. So it's 1/10 of them are actually dedicated to bioeconomy. It's huge, as well as the whole agri-food business. You know, and the agriculture is about 17% of EU GDP. It's really one of the biggest. So we have this as well with in linkage with the health. If it goes together, health is another one which is huge. It creates really a big potential for future markets in order to have the transition into the greener and more digital and resilient economy. So just to mention that in agri-food, agriculture, and marine industries, we have 178 clusters. Yeah? And industrial biotechnology, biogas, and biofuels, 77 clusters in Europe. This gives a huge potential to interlinkages and bringing together the actors across Europe, researchers and businesses, so that we can create the really pan-European networks of industries and linkages of clusters. I'm saying this because, like for the future MFF, this will be one of our mantras, to bring together actors in interdisciplinary way and cross-sectoral way. And I think this gives a huge potential for many projects, many consortia being created, particularly in this field. So looking out of the box of agri-food business, looking broader, looking into where the cross-clustering could be used, looking in other ecosystems that we have where potential of the whole industry or the whole ecosystem can be really exploited. So this is what I just wanted to say, and thank you, and sorry for the beginning, some issues. Thank you.
Agrees. I don't have a question, but a proposal. I just find now the opportunity to propose it now, because later I may be away to a project meeting. Considering the nice initiatives between Romania and Bulgaria, the situation in Balkan and what Nelo mentioned on BBI in the Balkan area, why don't we initiate a Balkan Association of Union or simply a group of clusters? I would even better prefer it to be focused on the fields of bioeconomy and energy, but even a more generic association to promote clusters in the Balkan area could help. So.
Yeah, hey Yanis, nice to hear from you. I think this is a great idea, and this is something that Daniel and Teodora could take up. So it's also their responsibility to get in touch with you and to discuss this, but it's a great idea.
So any comment from here? We don't have, yeah, Daniel, would you comment? Yeah, it's better, because if not, they will not hear you from, from the GoToMeeting session.
Yes, thank you very much for this comment. It is not that Bulgaria and Romania, let's say, the cooperation was the closest, but the cooperation in the Balkan started already 10 to 10 years ago. We have had a series of cluster conferences taking place in Turkey, also in North Macedonia, in Croatia, in Serbia. And this is how also this supported also this creation of the European Cluster Alliance. I think that our main aim now and the main challenge is to strengthen the European Cluster Alliance. And of course, there to ensure the role of clusters as pillars of these 14 industrial ecosystems and of the green, digital, and resilient recovery. And of course, there are differences in Europe between certain regions, and the Balkan region has a particular specificity, which of course will be treated accordingly in our future endeavor. So thank you very much for this idea, which somehow validates our approach until now, and also gives us impulse to continue on that path. Thank you.
Teodora, would you comment as the Bulgarian representative?
Hello. Also from my end, thank you very much for all the input. One of the things that even Nelo mentioned earlier, and we exchanged a few emails after his morning presentation, that he would really love to hear more the voice of the Bulgarian and Romanian representatives in that specific area. So this is somewhere that with the help as well with the European Cluster Alliance and being really active in that field, I think this is exactly the way we should start. I mean, because obviously if this is a specific industry and we need to follow the needs of the industry, and obviously we need working together, which was also commented through the Zoom questions. So thank you very much for the input. And thank you, Antonio.
You're very welcome. So it's time to close. It's 11 o'clock, more than that. Thank you, everyone. So 11 there in the Central European time, sorry. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. It has been a very interesting experience. We are learning a lot, okay, and demonstrating our capability to adapt. So thank you. You are invited to join the next session. Tomorrow we have a very interesting one on automotive. And we are also preparing the calendar for the next ones for October. Please follow, join us, contribute, and be creative, challenging, and proactive. Thank you, and see you soon. I'm sure. Bye.
Bye.
So just to inform, now it's gonna start the lunch, but before the lunch, please all, let's go in front of where is the pool, this fountain, so to make a group photo, please, and then we will come back after the lunch at 12:45, when it's going to be a very important presentation of the different clusters. So this is very, very important for your networking. So please be back, because Genoveva will be leading this session, and we will hear presentations from various clusters, which is extremely important and good. Thank you.